Hello everyone, I think I'm live. Am I live? If you're watching this on playback, not relevant. Hope you're all well. Welcome to Prime Minister's Questions for the 23rd of March 2022. Gee Louise, this is an interesting one. It's interesting for a number of reasons, not least because a certain idiot of a Prime Minister has kinda screwed up. And it's obvious enough when you see it. So, we will be delving into what it is that has managed to rile my dog up next to me. Are you done, Plumpy? No? Oh, you're going... Okay, with your tapping, I do apologise now. She's making a mess on the floor with the blanket, because she's that dog. So, thankfully for PMQs today, it is a very local problem. And that very local problem is very local to me. Because I live near Dover, in a region nearby anyway, and this is, well, concerning a company that operates out of Dover, no less. And I know a few interesting little tidbits that would contradict some of the answers we're going to get from Boris. So, before we even start, hello Takeout Joe, hello Orla, hello Joe. Yep. Hello Dusk Plains. Hope everyone's had a good day. I know some of you might have seen me on Twitch earlier. I will happily say hello to you multiple times. Hello Robert. Puppers of Madness. She is indeed that. We are going to be delving into PMQs, and, well, there's some good news in this. I will say this. Ian Blackford, the SNP politician, the paper pervert, as we sometimes refer to him. Hello, Nathan. He actually has some good news for the House, and it's something I can fully support. So, let us switch over to here. Oh, there we go. There's the video. I had to skip ahead a little because this is a full 3-hour thing. Because Rishi Sunak halfway through gives his budget statement, and I didn't just go with the shortened version because the shortened versions of PMQs has the stupid sign language person on the screen, which means that our 480p resolution that we have here would be even lower. And I can't be arsed. I will turn this up a little, because I don't know how loud he'll be. There's always a bit of a disconnect. Hello, Cyrene. Hope you're well. Don't have to apologise for being late this time. Because look, as the owner's put in the chat, Jorelli. And that's exactly how she sounds, by the way. So I'm just doing a impersonation. Yeah, those. I am early. I thought if I start early, I can end early. So, let's get into this.
We now start with questions to the Prime Minister. Helen Hayes.
Oh, this isn't too bad in my ear. Reasonable volume.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministers.
There's something I am going to appreciate. As much as I don't like 480p, which is what this is, considering the amount of money these people generate, no one could spring for a better camera. All right. I still like that the chamber's full. I like that a lot. It makes this more interesting, by the way. With the speaker sat there and his clerks, with that person sat there, I thought that would be his sex slave or something.
Colleagues and others, in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
You tell him, mophead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The degrading strip search of child Q 2 years ago in a school that should have been a safe place, at the hands of police officers who she should have been able to trust, has caused anger and distress across the country.
I know nothing about this.
On Monday, the policing minister failed to answer 4 separate questions in this chamber, asking when he first knew about child Q and what urgent action he took in response.
Child Q?
So I asked the Prime Minister, when did he first hear about the strip search of child Q in her school, and whether he believes that the characteristic dither and delay of his government in responding to this appalling case is remotely acceptable when it comes to the safety of children.
So I know nothing about that case, by the way. I really don't. And when I first hear child Q, yes, of course, I'm not the only person that thinks Q continuum. Let's go with what we know, though. What she has told us must be fact. It would not be mentioned in the chamber otherwise. No police officer should ever conduct a strip search on a child. Ever. They didn't even... Yeah, so, firstly, that sounds unlawful. Thank you, Ola, for providing the context. Hello, bloke, hope you're well. So, 15-year-old strip searched at a school under suspicion of carrying weed. That is not a good enough reason to strip search a child in the slightest. She is a minor, okay? That is not something they should be doing, okay? And the fact they did that reeks of, as you mentioned, POC. It reeks of racism. It really does. And there's no optics where that ever looks good. So that's all I can say. If that's based on what you've told me, Orla, it sounds unlawful. Or it reads as unlawful. And therefore it should be, it should lead to legal proceedings against the police officers. Over weed, or no less. Weed. Are you kidding me? If you suspect the child has weed, send them home. Send them home, and with the parents' permission, search their belongings first, not their person. And it is messed up, I agree. Didn't mention the teachers. Oh, was there a teacher's pass, Miss Normie? Hello, Normie, by the way. That makes it read even worse than that. Oh dear. Yeah. Alright. And by the way, if it's taken 2 years to still get no resolution, then yes, the delay being the hook used by the current government on people like Corbyn, yeah, absolutely accurate. And people shouldn't be booing that. It's a straight up, yes, screwed up. Get on with this, fix this.
Mr. Speaker, I think that is a completely ridiculous characterisation of the response of the government because of course, the reports of this incident are deeply distressing and deeply concerning.
They should be, but more notably, I think they're very concerning to the person who had to go through it. That person's a bit older now. I doubt their faith in you is restored if it's taken this long to get nothing done.
Everybody shares her feelings about that, Mr. Speaker, but the Metropolitan Police have rightly apologised and the IOPC is investigating, and for that reason it would not be right to comment further.
I'll be honest, I don't think you understood the question. This isn't something where you're inappropriately... You know what, just let it go.
Sir Oliver Hill.
Right, hang on. If this is a Conservative, prepare for the plant question, everyone. Do you think that a police officer is going to get into trouble? It wasn't that long ago when I beat a disabled baton and didn't get into trouble. Wait, what? Oh, he beat a disabled kid to death. Or did you? Ola, are you owning up to a crime? Because I might be misreading something there. Yeah, no, I don't. I will now say, disclaimer, I can't conceive of a reality where I think it remotely acceptable to do that to a child. It should never be down to you, and it's weed. Are you kidding me? Even if they did have it on the premises, send them home. Just send them home. Straight up. Send them home. That's it. You're out of school. Okay? Done. Alright? Nothing else has to be done at that point. Leave it to the parents to resolve it. It's their job after all, not yours. And you just humiliated and degraded a 15-year-old. For what purpose? Weed? What do you think you're doing? Carrying a 9-bar in their pocket? Idiots. I really do... I really hope Ola did, because I misread that entirely, but I assume it means he beat a kid to death with his baton and didn't get into trouble. Instead of I. And the fact that happened, Ola, is genuinely tragic. Hello, Noetic. If there's anyone else I haven't said hello to, do poke your head. Okay, so not Orla, what I'll do is I'll read your message. Do you think that a police officer is going to get into trouble? It wasn't that long ago when I beat a disabled kid to death with his baton and he didn't get into trouble. That might be, might help you, because you've written there, when I beat a disabled kid to death. That's the part where I now have to confirm where you mean when he beat a disabled kid to death and not when I. Because that might, you know. Hello, Jingo J. Right, we'll carry on. Hello, Scott Lloyd.
Mr. Speaker, people across North East Hertfordshire are coming together to provide support and refuge to families fleeing the invasion in Ukraine. The Baldock and District Action Committee are about to welcome 4 families to our community.
That makes more sense than
all.
all
Agree with me that this shows the open-hearted generosity of the British people. And will he continue to do all that he can with the refugees?
Lance question.
Suck that Prime Minister dry.
That's a guy jockeying for a position in the cabinet, everyone.
My honourable friend, and I also thank all those involved in the 2 big schemes that we have now for welcoming people from Ukraine. And the Homes for Ukraine scheme is now open. I think about
I'll sub he for I. Otherwise, that sentence, no matter what you meant, honestly.
Homes across this country, people, families across this country have said they want to welcome Ukrainians. That's a fantastic thing. I thank Baldock and District for helping to lead the way.
Cool. Plant question. Right, Keir Starmer. This will be a nice swerve because their discussion's going to go in a little different direction.
Welcome the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 800 loyal British workers fired over Zoom.
So, those 800 workers worked for a company called P&O Ferries. P&O Ferries, well, they operate out of a number of places, more notably out of Dover. I almost had a job with them once, long ago. Yes. I didn't have a passport, though, so things were an issue. P&O Ferries, and it's going to feature in EOSP tomorrow because I have to. They fired them, even after promising not to fire them, so that they could then hire cheaper labour from somewhere else in Europe. Okay, well, let's let this happen.
Instantly replaced by foreign agency workers shipped in on less than the minimum wage. If the Prime Minister can't stop that, what's the point of his government?
So before the Prime Minister answers this, those people were unlawfully dismissed. Straight up, unlawfully dismissed. And then replaced by people who, by our own laws, have to be paid minimum wage to be able to, be eligible to work for P&O Ferries. P&O Ferries have mentioned they've had some monetary issues of late. Let's just have a quick conversation about that. P&O Ferries sponsor Renault Formula One to the tune of £20 to £30 million a year. They get millions from the UK government to operate here. There is a law, a UK law, that should prevent them from doing this. However, the government didn't close one of the loopholes that allowed them to do this. And Keir Starmer's question is straight up, you guys failed because there's something here you missed, and you know it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we condemn the callous behaviour of P&O, and I think...
So, interesting he mentions P&O by name right now, because later on he's going to stop calling him that. I don't know if he's trying to be a little less reactionary, but yeah.
I think that it is no way to treat hard-working employees, and I can tell him that we will not sit by, Mr. Speaker, because under Section 194 of the Trades Union and Labour Relations Act of 1992, it looks to me, Mr. Speaker, as though the company concerned has broken the law. And we will be taking action, therefore, and we will be encouraging workers themselves to take action under the 1996 Employment Rights Act. Both acts, Mr. Speaker, passed by Conservative governments.
Who cares? Who passed them?
And if the company is found guilty, then they face fines
They will be found guilty because it is unlawful by the very law you've cited. I looked at it for tomorrow.
running into millions of pounds, Mr. Speaker.
I hope all that money then goes to the 800 individuals who just lost their jobs in an area, by the way, if you live near Dover, you'll know this. Employment in Dover, oxymoron. It's just one big contradiction. Just a massive contradiction. It's so hard. It's why I went self-employed around here. Because it's so difficult to get a job. And Dover as a town is dead. There's not much there anymore. It's a dying the high street's already dead, quite frankly. It's barely alive now. Coronavirus killed it.
And in addition, we will be taking steps to protect all mariners who are working in UK waters and ensure that they are all paid the living wage, Mr. Speaker.
So that's a good sign. However, and this is the obvious one, it doesn't resolve the issue that some people have lost their jobs. They don't have jobs right now. All you can do is say, I'm assuming all he'll do and say is that the best they can offer is that they claim state welfare for a bit.
Mr. Speaker, when Owen Paterson was on the ropes, the Prime Minister was prepared to rip up the entire rulebook to save his jobs. P&O workers want him to show the same fight in relation to them. The government had advance warning of these mass sackings.
They did.
A memo was sent to the Transport Secretary and to the Prime Minister's office, but they didn't lift a finger to stop them. Did the Prime Minister not understand the memo, or did he just not bother to read it?
So that was giving due notice that these cuts were going to happen. Yet, the employees were led to believe this was not going to happen. It's why many of them staged the sit-in on P&O ferries, who were then threatened with police action unless they got off the boats. Brave people. They loved their jobs and they loved working for P&O, and P&O said, yeah, but we can save a little money after we spent too much on sponsorship deals and ads. You know, to try and make more money, and it didn't work. Oh, but also, we could also then just bully them into a lower pay, unless, they take it, we'll fire them.
I think what the right honourable gentleman needs to rip up, Mr. Speaker, is his pre-scripted questions. Because I've just answered the question, and the point at issue, Mr. Speaker, is whether or not the government was properly notified, and it's not about what happens the previous evening. I knew about it on the Thursday.
Thank you.
It became public. But
and it does fluctuate, but based on what it is in the UK, there's a base rate, isn't there?
Before they take action of that kind. That is
and I think that's what they're trying to say.
The action that we are to protect hard-working people, and what we're also doing, by the way, Mr. Speaker, this month is lifting the living wage for all workers across our country by another £1,000. So it's up £5,000 since 2015.
I don't care about any of that. I mean, it's great that the tax bar will go up. Great. Fantastic news. But really, I don't care about that. I care that 800 people have lost their jobs in one of the most callous and unlawful acts. That's the only thing that matters. What you do as a government is just flexing. It's a pantomime, a stage. It's irrelevant and distracts from the fact that you didn't actually answer the question about the memo.
I think the Prime Minister just said he knew about it on the day.
Yeah.
I take it from that answer the Prime Minister didn't read his WhatsApp briefing.
Surely not.
Let's test his rhetoric. Mr. Speaker, since the Prime Minister came to office, P&O have received over £38 million of government contracts.
That's interesting, because that's probably how much they spent on sponsorship for Renault and ads. Hello, Lisa. Hope you're well.
And the parent company, DP World, is lined up for £50 million of taxpayers' money under the Freeport scheme.
See, they get loads of money coming in. This is solely a greedy act. And I know someone can now say, oh, but it's a free market. We're not in the EU, though, so they have to abide UK laws on employment. This is where the cock-up is. But at the same time, they got rid of our workers, and as a government, they should only be interested in protecting our jobs. But that's important for later. You'll understand soon.
Reviewing these contracts, but reviews don't save jobs. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that these companies will not get a penny more of taxpayers' money or a single tax break until they reinstate the workforce?
So I do think that'd be a very interesting negotiating tactic. I don't think it's something the Conservatives would do because it goes against their own beliefs. I think it's a very interesting idea, though, to explore. Hold them ransom, whether or not 800 people would want to go back to a company or get rid of them like that. But at the same time, those employees would know that the government has their back. So that actually does give them some power. And that's where unions are handy, don't you think? Very useful.
Mr. Speaker, I think what the House has already heard is that we are taking legal action against the company concerned under the 1990.
See, he stopped calling him P&O now.
To Employment and Trades Union and Labour Relation Act, and that is the right thing to do, because it seems to me, Mr. Speaker, that they have broken the law. But if he's asking this government to do what Labour usually want us to do and actively pitchfork away investment around the country from overseas, Mr. Speaker, then that is not what we will do. We'll take them to court. We'll defend the rights of British workers. What we will not do, Mr. Speaker, is launch a wholehearted campaign, as they would want, against overseas investment.
That
is completely wrong, and wrong.
Right, just going to stop him. This is not about overseas investment, though. This is about a company that receives government funding. And Keir Starmer pointed it out. They receive funding from the UK government, from taxpayers in this country. So your job is not to protect overseas investments. This is not an overseas investment at all. This is about UK jobs. How have you got this so mixed up? I know you try to. He's doing, and I use this a lot. It is reductio ad absurdum. He's taken the idea and blown it to the extreme. I get it, but come on, Boris. Their jobs are vastly more important to protect. That's your job, not to think of the world stage. To think of our country, and to say the argument is about global investment into this country or foreign investment into this country is a misunderstanding. And it can't be an investment, by the way, because
800 people lost their fucking jobs.
Oh, and to add to that,
that same company has spent shitloads on other things. Beyond their own staff, they're just getting greedy, you stupid cunt.
For those workers, Mr. Speaker.
Well, DP World must be quaking in their boots.
Yeah. DP World, I think DP are thinking. They're thinking, so we're getting more money from them soon then.
The Prime Minister says how disappointed he is in them, whilst handing them £50 million.
Some politicians have second jobs, though, Jay.
About the law. Speaking of
Some
hollow
do.
reviews, as the law stands, it's not illegal to pay seafarers below the national minimum wage, even if they're working out of UK ports and in UK waters. 2 years ago, Prime Minister, his government admitted that that was unjustifiable 2 years ago, and promised 2 years ago, you've guessed it, to review it. 2 years on, despite what he says today, nothing's been done, leaving the gate wide open for P&O.
That gate needs to be shut.
British workers don't need another empty review, they need action. So when will the Prime Minister fix that gap in the law?
That's an important question, because that does need to be addressed. That does create a discrepancy, and it does incentivise companies that operate out of this country to not give jobs to people in this country and simply just hire from abroad, knowing that they can get them cheaper. And I'm intrigued to hear Boris's answer. I bet you all are. Hello, Charlie Church.
Mr. Speaker, with great humility, I must ask the right honourable gentleman to listen to the answer that I gave.
It doesn't matter. He's asked you a question. It doesn't matter if he's been repeated, which, by the way, it hasn't. You just embellished immensely and waffled on. You talk about foreign investment into this country. So how's that relevant? All right, carry on.
First question. It would then help him to scrap his third or fourth question and try another one. We are going to address the defects in the 1998 Living Wage Act, Minimum Wage Act, and make sure that everybody serving in the UK exclusive economic zone, working in the UK exclusive economic zone, gets paid the living wage as people do in the rest of the country.
Keir Starmer.
The problem is that's what he said 2 years ago. It didn't
Yeah.
happen, and P&O took advantage of the gap left wide open by this Prime Minister.
That is true. By definition, that is a problem created by this government. I like Boris, but this one's your fault. Hello,
P&O's
Ahsoka.
behaviour
Not
comes off the
much.
back of a string of fire and rehire cases. Profitable companies threatening to fire workers unless they accept a pay cut. The Prime Minister keeps telling us just how opposed he is to fire and rehire.
Something which I'm fundamentally against, along with zero-hour contracts. But I do believe zero-hour contracts was a creation of the Labour Party. I'm fundamentally against all this. I've done a zero-hour contract, by the way, before, working then 60 hours a week. It was hell. You didn't know how many hours you got, but for 18 months, that's how many hours I was doing a week. It was not ideal. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to all of this, it's a load of bollocks, really. And quite frankly, if Boris can't get on top of this, how are the people supposed to have any faith in him?
But as we saw on Monday...
And yet, Normie, that is a fair point. Open borders, they are very much for that, and this would cause more problems if it was open.
To ban it.
Although I would say, I'm not entirely sure what Keir Starmer's position on the border is. I don't think he believes it should be as secure as the voters want it. Come on, the majority voted for Brexit. They voted for Brexit, voted for Boris after all. I think he'd want it a little bit looser. Not as loose as Corbyn wanted it. But you do raise a good point. Because if we had open borders, this problem would again be an issue because companies would just disappear anyway and hire from abroad and just rock up with their lower paid employees. We'd have less opportunities.
Whilst he sits on his hands, more and more workers are having their lives thrown upside down by this appalling practice. What good to them?
And all
is a Prime
exactly.
Minister
I
who's
hated
all
it.
mouth and no trousers.
Okay, the all mouth, no trousers thing was a comment that Theresa May was kind of known for, memed for as well, where she said it to Jeremy Corbyn in PMQs. We covered it here. It's a nice little callback to somebody that in the Commons is held in a lot of high esteem and respect, and that would be Theresa May. She's held with very high regard now, considering what Boris does to how she did. Come and go and unregulated matter is bad. So I've been told. Can't confirm. In session more than the dang Congress and the House in North America. Because our politicians, quotations, work more. Yep. They get paid less than your guys as well.
Mr. Speaker, the most notable practitioners of fire and rehire are, of course, the Labour Party themselves. He may be interested. He may be interested to know we will be vindicating the rights of British workers,
Hey, raise it,
UK employees under UK law. But the law that the P&O, the company themselves, are allegedly relying on, was introduced, I can tell him, as a result of EU directives. And
now it's time to lay on to him.
and never forget, Mr. Speaker. And he may not like it. That's the reality. He would have kept us unable to change it, unable to get out of it.
I don't know why he's doing this now. It's 2022. Don't need to do any of this spiel until like 2024 when Parliament, is dissolved and you have to campaign for another term. You got 2 more years. Do you really have to do this same regurgitated shite every week? Come on.
He would have made it impossible for us to protect UK employees in the way that we're going to do. But what
Going to do means you didn't do, dipshit. Right? Going to do means you haven't done. Going to do means something bad happened. Oh, look, we cocked up. Rather than simply admit we cocked up, actually just, get on with it and fix it. We'll just point and say, yeah, but
Look what they did before us.
fucking mop.
What we're doing, Mr. Speaker, above all, is ensuring that workers
She did,
in this
Ahsoka.
country have
She
the
did.
best protection of all, which is a job, Mr. Speaker. And under this government, thanks to the steps that we have taken, thanks to the stewardship of the economy by my right honourable friend, which you'll be hearing about in a little bit more, Mr. Speaker, we have people in payroll employment, 600,000 more of them than before the pandemic began.
Weird flex, but okay.
He can complain all he likes, but on Monday, he ordered all of his lot to abstain on a vote to ban, fire and rehire.
Something which I fully support. Not the abstaining. I fire and rehire. No, get rid of it. That's a horrible idea to be allowed to exist in the employment market. But then again, I'm self-employed. I fire and rehire myself on a daily basis.
And they all did. And then,
Yeah, that's not.
Mr. Speaker,
None of them looked in for that one. They know that was a stupid move. That was a dick move. Solely because it was a good idea brought forward.
to add insult to injury, after the vote, his party posted a message saying that where possible, they will look to find P&O workers new jobs. Pathetic. They don't want new jobs. They want their old jobs back. They don't.
You know they want their old jobs back because they were unwilling to leave the boats. Like, they were threatened with police action because they liked working for P&O. They liked working on the ferries.
They don't want a Prime Minister hoisting the white flag. They want him to fight for their livelihoods. 82,000 seafarers in this country. I've spoken to dockers, engineers, deckhands and sailors. They're all worried about what this means for them. This morning, one of them said to me, if P&O can get away with this, other companies will get rid of us too and replace us with cheap labour from abroad. Why does the Prime Minister think that they will take a crumb of comfort from his half-assed bluster and waffle today?
By the way, it is exactly that. You know he was he looked guilty the moment Starmer started talking and he looked away with the abstaining from the vote.
Mr. Speaker, P&O plainly aren't going to get away with it any more than any other company that treats its employees in that scandalous way, Mr. Speaker. And this is a historic moment for this country, actually, because it's now 2 years since 2 years to the day that we went into lockdown. And that plunged this country into the biggest, deepest loss of output that we've seen in our lifetimes. And thanks to the Chancellor, who protected the economy, who protected jobs, who protected companies, we've now been able to come out faster and more effectively than any other comparable economy. We have unemployment back down to 3.9%. We have 600,000 more people.
Yeah, Starmer doesn't have a good voice. It's very nasally. But if you can ignore the sound of it, the words coming out are the right words at the moment. He's hit the nail on the head, and that's why this is. This is really embarrassing at the moment for him. He's not answered any of the questions. And that's another big point here. If you were paying attention to the 6 questions that have been asked so far, he has not answered any of them. Really, he hasn't. Well, maybe the first one. He hasn't answered them. He's blathered on.
Calls right during the pandemic. They got the big calls wrong. They would do absolutely nothing to protect.
Oh, blah blah. Shut up.
Left off. Well, thank you.
Right. We're going to go to the paper pervert because this is important. Okay. And I said at the start that Ian Blackford said something I agree with and is good. So we're going to let it happen.
Into account.
SNP's spokesman leader of the SNP in Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a matter of seconds at 12:16, an aircraft is due to depart Heathrow Airport, a Virgin Atlantic aircraft, to go to Warsaw to pick up 50 young orphans that have left Ukraine.
Those 50 orphans last week or the week before, Ian Blackford was campaigning to get the government to let them come to Scotland so that they can, his name is Ian Blackford, so that they can come and live a free life from war. And it was causing issues, there were delays. This is the good news.
That are coming to spend the next period of their life in Scotland with the sanctuary that we can offer them. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone that has helped to make sure that we can offer a new start to these young people away from the war. And in particular, the governments in London and in Edinburgh, and in particular to thank the Immigration Minister, the member for Torbay, and the Refugee Minister in the House of Lords, Lord Harrington. This is a good day for these 50 young people.
100% agreed. Very good news, because they were being spoken of by Ian Blackford a couple of weeks ago, and it was important to get them away from this. They do need parents, you're right. I believe there is something in place for them, from what I just don't remember what it was. I had it written down, okay.
But let's hope that it's the beginning of something much more significant for many more young people that we can offer sanctuary to. Mr. Speaker, this morning we have official confirmation that inflation is at its highest level in 30 years. But families don't need official confirmation to know that the cost of food and energy are now at a price they simply can't afford. The very people who have borne the brunt of the health pandemic are now being hammered by the poverty pandemic. This is not just a cost of living crisis, this is an emergency. That is why in Scotland, the SNP government is doubling the Scottish child payment and raising benefits it controls by 6%, double the rate the Chancellor has proposed for the benefits he has control over. So this is a very simple question for the Prime Minister. If he truly understands that this is an emergency, will he match the Scottish Government's commitment and lift all benefits by 6%?
So, that's an interesting question. I'm going to now spoil something. I listened, while I was editing today's Halls of Injustice, to Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's speech, his budget statement. In that, while things do look like they're getting better, he has conceded, with the current war between Russia and Ukraine, it is likely the poorest are going to be hit the hardest regardless of these changes. Just thought I'd let you know.
I thank him very much. And
hello, Tails doll.
We all recognise the inflation, global inflation, is causing a real cost of living crisis.
It's time, man. Come on, man. Fix your tie.
In the US, inflation is now running at more than 8%, where at the levels in other European countries. We're doing everything we can to help people. The Chancellor's put another £9.1 billion into reducing the cost of energy for families. But I don't know quite what he's shouting out, Mr. Speaker, but we want to do more. And Scotland, I can tell him, is in the lead in helping this country to solve its energy problems, not just with more offshore wind, Mr. Speaker, but by abandoning the phobia of our own hydrocarbons, which I think are going to be vital for transition and avoid us being blackmailed by Putin's Russia. And on his point about the orphans, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to him for his efforts. I thank him, and it's another example, if I may say, without embarrassing him further, of the burgeoning cooperation between us.
So that's more of a joke to the fact that they've had conversations over the years, and they rarely talk about it.
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, we want to make sure we open our doors in Scotland and welcome refugees, that we have that generosity of spirit, but we'll leave that there for now. Can I say to the Prime Minister that inflation is at 6% and increasing? We need to make sure that those the most vulnerable have that increase in benefits that they need in order to pay for fuel. And the Chancellor needs to ditch the official photographer and listen to Martin Lewis. Martin
Lewis is a renowned money-saving expert. He's kind of known. He's even built a business off this, and to be able to guide people through financial hardships. He's very well known on television for this as well. It's interesting. I don't know if he's still considered that, but he has some interesting perspectives, and I think since he's made a career out of it, it makes him a very interesting person to listen to. Whether or not you can agree, that's up to you. But yeah, and I do think if inflation's up 6%, if that then impacts the cost of living, then what do you do to help those that are on benefits? Because obviously we shouldn't be doing it so it's an easy way to live their life. But if people are stuck on benefits the rest of their life due to debilitating conditions, inability to work at all, for that matter, they should know they're safe. They should.
Finances are at breaking point. They can't tighten their budgets anymore. These families have no room for manoeuvre. But the truth is that the Chancellor does. Lower borrowing and increased taxes means that he's sitting with £20 billion to spend today. But instead, this Chancellor is making a political choice. The choice to push people further into hardship by hiking taxes, cutting universal credit, and giving companies free rein to slash workers' pay through fire and rehire. So the test for the Prime Minister is this. Will the government use the full £20 billion they are sitting on to scrap the national insurance tax hike and put money into people's pockets? Or will he simply make this Tory poverty pandemic even worse?
So interestingly, hello, anonymous guest. He mentions tax hikes and budget cuts. Interestingly, in Rishi's statement, he kind of hits that on the head. Actually, I need to go back because I've just got it wrong, haven't I? Give me a second. I have to go back.
Into hardship by hiking taxes, cutting universal credit, and giving companies free rein to families have no room for manoeuvre.
Right, this is it.
But the truth is that the Chancellor does.
Right.
Lower borrowing and increased tax.
Right, lower borrowing, that was it. Right, so, interestingly, the political manoeuvre is that Rishi, during his statement, acknowledged that borrowing is at its all-time highest and it's unlikely to go down anytime soon because we're paying tens of billions on paying interest on those loans. He called it. I don't even need to play Boris's answer because it's a load of crap. Actually, we'll leave that there. That makes more sense, doesn't it? There we go. We come back here. Fantastic. Now I can close this tab. Are there any dodgy tabs on my end? No, there aren't. Oh, win. Well, it's gone anyway. Okay. Well, lucky for all of you, we are at an end. Thank you very much for joining. I will be back here on Friday for a political recap with Trupsy Wupsy. And if I don't see you there, I will try and sort out another research stream. But I can't guarantee that. So yes, I will... Oh yeah, gilts, Ahsoka. We take out gilts. Loans with other companies and countries to pay for our inability to live within our means. There you go. I'm off now. I'm going to go do other things before I have a patron hangout.